Okay, welcome to Coffee Break, and today we've decided to have a bit of a chat in general in a topic that we would categorize as woo.
This is one of our woo-woo sessions.
Yes.
Although it's not particularly about woo-woo things, it's about why woo-woo things are being ignored by the mass media, politicians,
Generally in
society.
everyone, in terms of everyday life and what you base your belief system on.
and what that means to us.
So what does that mean?
Okay.
So there's a few things that we've kind of singled out as things that we think have a pretty good bit of video and other evidence to back them up, so that we can include them here as part of this presentation and also in the show notes for further research on your part. In that, obviously you need to be a critical thinker and you need to make your own decisions on these things. I think I kind of operate under this belief system that says that if only one of the tens of thousands of UFO stories are true, that's enough.
That's enough.
Even if the vast majority of them are fakes or are optical illusions or whatever you want to call it, all it takes is one. And I think the odds of none of them over the years, from the time immemorial all the way through till now, all being fake, not really.
So here's the thing. For example, Elon Musk has just sent his Tesla up into space.
I sent my Tesla. I've been on the list for like years, and he's just sent one up there and pissed it away.
True. It was his own Tesla, so I guess
fair.
He's allowed to. Eventually, that's going to it's going to stay in orbit, but eventually it'll head off somewhere. Who knows where? And in a fixed amount of time, assuming it doesn't decompose, it will turn up somewhere, and it will be a UFO.
A UFO
So
or a meteor.
So even if these things aren't manned and they're just reconnaissance vehicles.
Fair enough, I think there certainly is some of that, and every day somewhere in the world there's stuff burning into the atmosphere and showing up as a blaze in the night, if it's a nighttime when it's viewed wherever it comes in, or if in the case of the Soviet Union a few years back, it actually went and landed in a frozen lake and it was a huge fireball and blew windows out in the village and everything. So those things happen. We know that happens, and I would imagine there's satellites decaying out of orbit, every week now. We've got so many up there.
There's a lot of space junk.
A lot of space junk.
Sure, yeah.
And
a Tesla.
And a Tesla now as well. So, what do you think about these things? I mean, how should you think about them? Is it important? Is it something to be ignored? Is it hocus pocus or hokum? I don't know. But it feels that if you completely ignore what may be evidence that we not only aren't alone in the universe, but that there have been more advanced civilizations than ours living on this planet in the past, you might be missing a trick, because there's a whole lot of evidence that seems to suggest that that's true. So, how do you look at that? Well, let's start with this one instance. There was a gentleman, I believe, I forgot his name, but we'll link all this in the show notes, who had been watching undamaged wheat fields in Wiltshire, which is kind of a ground zero over here in the UK for crop circle formations. Because it's near Stonehenge, that's one of the theories, because it's near a node, which is the Stonehenge is taken to be in context of an energy portal or vortex.
And transects some ley lines.
Yes, the ley lines that come together and form it is taken to be one of the 7 Earth chakras.
Yeah.
And therefore has unique energy properties, not only in our dimension, but every dimension, apparently. And so anyway, that may explain the reason that there are so many crop circles that form around it in Wiltshire. So that's kind of a background to this particular story I'm going to tell you, which is that this gentleman had his camera set up. He'd gone out before dawn up on a hillside that overlooked a couple of these fields, and he set up his cameras and was lucky enough to catch these two silver orbs that came flying in from off the field into an area in front so that his cameras could barely capture it. And these orbs just started circling above the undamaged wheat, and over time a relatively complex crop circle formed underneath that.
But what about the most famous balls of light in crop circle history? This is the Oliver's Castle video, one of the most sensational pieces of evidence connecting the balls of light with the creation of a crop circle. Come on. It began to make the rounds the same day the circle formed. Many believers were convinced that it was the real deal.
This is amazing.
What strikes Ted Clay as suspicious is how the video maker acted.
If you were taking a video and suddenly two balls of light flew into the image, what would you do with your camera? You would follow the balls of light. In the Oliver Castle video, the camera never really moves. The other thing is the sound.
This is amazing.
Imagine if you were taking a video of balls of light creating a crop circle. Would your words be, "That's amazing"? Just doesn't fit.
His verdict?
It's a hoax.
He's correct. Unless you happen to be a giant conspiracy theorist. One day at dawn, John Waby, a worker at a video production company, spotted a new circle. Inspiration struck. He grabbed his camera and started taping.
I just really thought it would be quite a good wheeze to see how they reacted if that footage was placed in front of them. And that's what I did.
The rest fell into place in a matter of hours. A video editor copied a section of wheat from another part of the field, pasted it over the formation, and it looked like the field pre-formation. Throw in a few balls of light, dissolve the superimposed wheat from the inside out, and voila, you have your circle.
This is amazing.
Waby then took the tape to a pub frequented by crop circle enthusiasts where it stirred up a frenzy that continues to this day. Some believers remain convinced that the video is real. Some think John Waby is a stooge for the government or military, trying to cover up something more sinister about crop circles.
For me, that certainly explains some of them, but I can't imagine that it explains some of the really, really complex ones that have popped up over the years, and that probably are some sort of communication. And there's a lot of people who've done a lot of deep research on these things, and you go into a crop circle that's freshly formed. Apparently there's a magnetic resonance that's still readable, both instruments in the area. There's a very fine metallic magnetic powder that's dispersed over the bent over wheat, and apparently the wheat itself isn't killed, it's just bent over as if some steam had been applied to the joint that allowed it to become flexible so that the wheat isn't killed. In other words, the farmer technically isn't viewing that as a dead crop after that, because the wheat can spring back up and come back. So anyway, it's for me a very interesting thing, and some people have spent some time deciphering these crop circles and pulling out binary messages that are talking about geographic coordinates and all sorts of intelligence if you're willing to look at it. But that's one of the things that I have in my mental filing cabinet as more to be determined here, because sure. I think that one of the things you have to do if you're a searcher in this life is maintain an open mind, not be dogmatic about things, because every day something new can come around that challenges your current belief, and you need to be able to refactor your belief system and take that on board and implement that somehow. Sure. So if crop circles are being done or demonstrated by other life forms than the ones we'd call earthly, what would you do with that information? Would you carry on regardless and just say it's nothing to do with me, or would that kind of change the way you look at things and how you fit into the big picture? Anyway, these are the kind of questions that I'm always asking myself, and Aiden as well. I think living on this earth, we've got so many privileges and unique, beautiful things that are part of our environment. But some of these things are not easily explained by current scientific thought. And those are the things for me that hold a huge amount of fascination, because I believe those are the games, if you will, the Easter eggs that are embedded in our reality by those wiser than us, perhaps, that make it fun, make it interesting, that you try to solve these Easter eggs and figure out a bit more about the nature of your life and the nature of the universe and that kind of thing. There's another one I want to open the door on here, which is a satellite called the Dark Night satellite, by those who've been watching and monitoring this fairly interestingly shaped body that's been in orbit over our planet for quite a while. I believe it circles the Earth at 449 times a year.
And Rick, you know what to do? Yes. Of course, on as you go, but
Ну, через 100 их мы знаем, что делать, да? Да.
So apparently this satellite has also been carved into some reliefs that are carbon dated at 13,000 years old in Teotihuacan in Mexico. So what does that mean? That could mean anything. It could mean that it's placed there by another civilization that isn't us to watch us or monitor us. It could mean that we placed it there in our past when we were more advanced, before Noah's flood or another reset happened that took us back down to sticks and stones. Either of those explanations is fascinating to me. What it still could be, I suppose, is debris that has been there forever and was captured 13,000 years ago, but I don't know of any satellite that has a non-decaying orbit that would transcend 13,000 years anyway.
Well, also, what did they see it with 13,000 years ago?
The visualization of it would have been...
Did you say there were also some hieroglyphs of telescopes?
There were telescopes and pictures of Saturn's rings before we had modern telescopes invented that could see them. So there's loads of unexplained occurrences. And I think what I'm trying to say here is not to particularly take a position on any of these as an individual topic, but just to say that I believe it's important for you to continue to question things and to continue to look for answers to these things. The solution of them may be wildly fantastic and challenge your very life view, belief system. And I think that in itself is a worthwhile endeavor. I hope you agree. There's, what was our third one?
Felix Lights, the Phoenix,
Lights. Yes, another example of a broadly witnessed event that happened March 13th, 1997 in Phoenix, Arizona, which is
watched by thousands of people, videoed by only 4 or 5, I believe, but still compelling video.
On March the 13th, 1997, residents of Phoenix, Arizona started reporting a formation of bright lights moving over their heads. The cluster of lights was seen by as many as 20,000 people, making it one of the biggest mass UFO sightings of all time. The event was caught on video from multiple angles, and has been famous among ufologists and alien fanatics ever since. Can these strange lights be explained?
May be able to help me, and this may feature, who knows? Because this is an international story. Because of you both being here, I looked into the international files. Not covered by our Ministry of Defense, but maybe covered by yours. This took place in Arizona. An unidentified pilot, according to the press cuttings, flying near an airport in Arizona with his son when he spotted 6 lights in the night sky. So he called from the aeroplane to air traffic control to say, I'm seeing these lights here. I wasn't expecting any other planes. They're none supposed to be on my landing path. Can you tell me what's going on? They said there are no other planes. He said, I'm seeing 6 bright lights coming towards me. Mystery unresolved.
Except tail number for that plane was Bonanza 2 Tango Sierra, and I was the pilot. No way. Oliver and I.
Yes, take us back. Doesn't say that in the briefing.
Oliver and I.
Well, I should have read to the end.
Oliver and I were flying in. I was flying him to go see his girlfriend, and we were on approach, and I saw 6 lights over the airport in absolute uniform in a V shape, and Oliver said to me, I was just looking at him, and I was coming in. We're maybe a half a mile out, and Oliver said, "Pa, what are those lights?" And I then it kind of like came out of my reverie, and I said, "I don't know what they are." I said, he said, "Are we okay here?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna call him," and I reported it. And they said, "We're not painting anything. We don't show anything." I said, "Well, okay, I'm going to declare it's unidentified, it's flying, and it's 6 objects." We landed. I taxied, dropped him off, took off, went back to LA. Never said a word. He never said a word. I never thought of it. 2 years later, Goldie is watching a television show when I came home.
Yeah.
And the show is on UFOs. But as I came home, "Hey, honey, how's it going?" And I'm kind of hearing the TV going, and I stopped and I started watching, and it was on that event. Now, that was the most viewed UFO event. Over 20,000 people saw that. And I'm watching this, and I'm feeling like Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's like, why do I know this? You know what? And it's not clear to me. And finally, I said. Then they said a pilot reported it. A general aviation pilot reported it on landing. I'd never thought of it since then, and I said, "That was me. That was me." And I said, "Wait a minute. I'll go to my logbooks." So I went to my logbooks, and there was the flight at that time, and I didn't mention anything about the UFO. The fascinating part of that to me is that it just went literally out of my head. And Oliver never mentioned it. And had I not seen that show, I'd have never thought of it again.
Amazing.
Now, that to me was the weird part.
I mean, I've watched it, and it does seem to be genuine.
Agreed. And we'll
link it.
1 or 2 good examples of some of those videos in there. It was covered by the news. It was even the governor of Arizona had a press conference about it the next day, into which he invited a colleague dressed as an alien in handcuffs to kind of take some of the anxiety out of the situation that had caused in the city, because Phoenix is a large city, I believe over 10 million people, so quite significant population, and it was universally viewed. Like almost anyone who was there looking up at the night sky saw it, and it was massive. It was like a mile from tip to tip, and it flew over the city and then back over. Apparently, it was seen in other parts of the state of Arizona as well. So who knows what that was? And it could have been us. It could have been our own government that has technologies that they haven't told us about that are.
But it just feels like it should be the biggest topic of
Well,
the century.
It
And
certainly
none of
feels
these
like it
things
should
are-
be more important
It
than
does.
who won X Factor or the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't seem to cut through. And
So is that because it's being actively suppressed? Is that your contention, or do you think it's just people these days are so cynical they go, it's nothing, it's a hoax?
I believe both. I believe it's definitely being actively suppressed in that there are those who have stakes in this game. Everyone from religious organizations to those in the military-industrial complex who may have managed to get some technology that's this advanced that they may not want us to know about, that we're paying for as taxpayers. I don't know. All I know is I try to take these on a case-by-case basis and look at them and see if they look like they're credible reports. And like I said at the beginning, it doesn't take all of these reports to be true to for me be a world-changing paradigm shift.
Just one.
Just one. So whether it's the 13,000-year-old Black Knight satellite that's been in our skies for well before the agricultural revolution, or if it's the fact that two spheres come in over Wiltshire and turn a field of wheat into a crop circle, or if it's a mile-wide V-shaped boomerang-lighted UFO flying over a city of 10 million who gets witnessed by thousands of people. So I'll leave you to make your minds up. I really want to say as a message that I want to challenge you to look at these things, think critically, but be willing, after you've amassed the evidence, to change your perspective.
And if you have any conspiracies or sightings that you'd like us to look at so that we can consider them, leave it in the comments below and we'll take a look and get back to you.
Yes, absolutely.
Time for coffee.
Yeah, let's have a coffee.
Bye-bye.
See you guys later.